Hello and welcome inside the Fantasy Champion Show. I'm Nick Anastos. This is Bob Morin. It is the Super Bowl edition of the Fantasy Champion Show. What does that mean? Well, we'll talk about the game in general, on general terms to begin with, highlight some players at each position. I guess we'll start at the top. Bob, who do you like?
In the game on Sunday.
Ravens or 49ers?
Right away.
Right away.
All right. I'm leaning towards San Fran, but as we talked about, I think it's gonna be a tight game. It's tough to predict. There's a lot of things I think that have to go right for each side to win, but I would give the upper hand to San Fran, so that's who I'm going for.
Is 3.5 the right spread?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's gonna be a close game.
A field goal game.
I think so. I honestly do.
Ravens.
I honestly do. I see it going that way. A lot of good matchups.
All right, what does this mean from a fantasy perspective? Obviously, a lot of loaded players, fantasy stars in the game. A lot of them on the defensive side. And unless you're in an IDP league, you might be unfamiliar with some of the names. Although football fans obviously know players on both sides of the ball. But fantasy stars jump out. I think at the top, we'll go with the quarterback spot. Joe Flacco coming into his own, 10 touchdowns, no interceptions in the postseason. His chance to star. Kaepernick has taken the NFL by storm. Came on in Week 10 for Alex Smith and hasn't looked back. He's been the star for San Francisco in this postseason run. So Flacco and Kaepernick, who has the better fantasy value for next year?
Well, like you said, though, this game, what you're looking at is for fantasy, definitely Joe Flacco. Can he take the next step and be a top-tier quarterback? You know, he has the weapons, Torrey Smith and Bolden right now. A great tight end. I think, you know, this game's big. I told you on the way over that I think a lot of pressure is on Flacco right now, you know, to win, to step up and prove it that he can be here and be at this level.
And if Flacco does win the Super Bowl, the perspective or the perception of Flacco immediately changes. He's in that next caliber, that next tier going in. And I think his value automatically, based on that fact alone, increases.
Yeah, he's definitely a starter week in and week out for fantasy teams because obviously this year, I think in our league, he was a backup on a team, but, you know, the team had like RG3. But he might be a guy, this could elevate him to, you know, people go out and trade for Joe Flacco.
A top 10, top 12 status.
Exactly, yeah. And then as far as Kaepernick goes, this is a huge game for him for next year. As far as if he wins the Super Bowl, I think his value is ahead of Flacco's.
I look at him in a lot of ways as the new Mike Vick.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm basing a lot on just that one performance on the ground against Green Bay. But you see what he can do athletically.
Yeah, exactly. Same size type guy. You know, they're different than like.
Well, he's bigger. He's bigger than Vick.
Yeah, and I'm
he's
saying
longer.
that, well, as far as their speed and all that, though,
right.
they're pretty much, they are a lot alike. But I think, you know, trying to compare like Cam Newton to him, they're different. You know what I mean? And a lot of people might automatically assume, oh, he runs a lot. He's like a Cam Newton. But I think he's a little different. I don't know if Cam Newton's arm might be a little better, though. I don't know. We'll have to see.
This is the Fantasy Champion Show, the Super Bowl edition, as we take a look at the Super Bowl between the 49ers and the Ravens and the potential impacts they may have fantasy-wise next season. Running back, stars abound. You have Frank Gore for the Niners, obviously Rice for the Ravens. But the backups, Bob, this may be their chance to really step out and shine and say, hey, fantasy world, I'm relevant on the world champs should they win. I mean, you have LaMichael James. Obviously, he was a star at Oregon. Kind of lost in the shuffle there behind Kendall Hunter as the scat back to begin in San Francisco. Little guy, scat back, but, you know, with Kaepernick and that pistol offense opening it up, he might be a guy on a roster maybe next year.
Yeah, he's like a Danny Woodhead, though, I think. I don't know if he's going to be, you know, maybe he could one day be like a Darren Sproles as far as production, but, you know, those guys are far and few, you know, in between as far as starting in fantasy, but he definitely could become, you know, relevant. But you go to the other side of the ball, Bernard Pierce, I like him a lot. He's looked real good in the playoffs, and he's someone that I'm sure a lot of fantasy owners have taken notice to. I know you probably have, and he's going to be available in a lot of drafts next year.
Well, he was on my roster for a few weeks.
Yeah, and he cut him.
Unfortunately, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
How about at the wideouts? And I want to begin with Michael Crabtree for the 49ers. This was kind of his coming out party this season in a lot of ways. He was good. He was hyped. He came in as a rookie. He was a first-rounder in our dynasty draft. But he had so inconsistent production his first 3 years in San Francisco. really, I think, in a lot of big games, stood out for the 49ers, fulfilled some of that potential, and now has a chance on the biggest stage to really come out and elevate his status next year in the wide receiver department.
Yeah, I like Michael Crabtree a lot. It's about time, is all I got to say. He took a long time to really come along.
But you agree he's arrived.
Definitely,
at this point.
he's arrived, and if he's not going to be a keeper, he's going to be a top, first-round pick next year, or a top wide receiver taken if he's out there, which I don't expect.
Right now, what do you think Michael Crabtree's value is in a one-year-only league? A redraft league, a JV league.
As far as a number?
Everyone starts from scratch. Where does he go in the round?
Oh, in a round, what, like a 10 or 12 team league?
10 or 12 team.
I would say he'd probably be a 5th or 6th rounder.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah, this is real good. That's you'd have to think in a 10-team league, maybe that's your 6th best player on your team, or 7th, 6th or 7th round. I don't know. It's hard to tell because he's one of those receivers.
A solid second wide receiver.
Definitely
a wide receiver 2. You'll see him probably in the
Could
late
elevate,
teens.
His potential is high too, which is nice.
I'd see him in the late teens probably when the early rankings come out.
Is this his 3rd year?
For Michael Crabtree, his 4th.
This was his 4th?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's about a year late from that coming out party that historically happens.
Well, better late than never.
Yeah.
This is the Fantasy Champion Show, the Super Bowl right around the corner between the 49ers and the Ravens. Fantasy-wise, let's stick with wide receiver, though. We only touched on Crabtree there. Torrey Smith seems like he was the guy all year.
Hold on a second. Let's go back to San Fran receiver. Let's talk about Randy for a little bit.
All right, Randy. All right.
Because I know a lot of people on the show, interesting character. You want to hear about Randy Moss. What's his deal next year? Because I've heard some rumblings.
He said he wants to play, and
Definitely.
then at Media Day he said, or someone posed the question, would you play for somewhere else, outside of San Francisco? He said yes.
I think it's going to happen.
And he also, was grumbling a little bit about his role with the 49ers. Seems odd, the timing as well.
Yeah, it's funny.
The week before the Super Bowl, but it is Randy Moss. But what do you think? Where is he next year, and what kind of value would he have at 36 years old?
This is the question. Is he even fantasy relevant? He was on a roster this year, but he was one of those guys that was probably picked up, dropped, a few times in the season.
Not started, for sure.
No, maybe on a bye week if he got lucky, on a weak team, but I don't think he has much fantasy value. But hey, I heard rumblings maybe he could have a reunion with Bill and Tom in New England, so that could be interesting because a lot of people said the Brandon Lloyd, the Deion Branch is the position Randy Moss would come in for. But you look at guys they brought in, Chad Johnson didn't work. I don't think Brandon Lloyd was anything special.
900 yards, 4 touchdowns.
He was all right. Yeah, he was all right. I expected a lot better season. I expected more touchdowns than that. 2
of them came in the Rams game.
Yeah, exactly. So, whatever. He wasn't that great. Randy, if he came back to New England, who knows? He could have another year left.
I don't know. I don't know if he still has that speed. He's supposed to be a decoy at this point.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me, though, if he found his way into the end zone on Sunday. It really wouldn't.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah, I think he will.
I think he would fit right in.
There's prop bets that are right around the corner as well. So
yeah, we should have the prop bets.
that would have been nice.
Interesting to see what the odds were for him scoring the first touchdown.
Yeah.
Either way, let's move on. Tight end. You mentioned earlier, Baltimore has a great tight end.
Yeah.
Dennis Pitta.
He's been playing well.
It sounds like great is a word now that's being thrown around rather easily. Are you prepared to back that up?
I actually think I'm really high on Pitta, especially he's one of those guys that I'm looking at next year. He might be like that Jimmy Graham. You saw Jimmy Graham that first year he was in the league. Didn't do too much. He was drafted high that following year.
He's not the athlete, Jimmy Graham is.
I'm not saying he's the athlete, but the production could be there. He's a big guy, good hands. We've seen great games out of him, especially early in the season, if you remember. He was a top tight end, and in the playoffs, he's played great.
He's had his moments, I'll give you that.
I'm just saying he could be an early tight end taken if he's not kept. He's probably a top 5 tight end, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
Quite a statement.
I would say maybe 5 or 6, but I don't think I think the tight ends drop after the top 5 as far as the quality out there.
Top 5 or 6, I'd say, is that top tier.
That's what I mean. I think he's in the top.
There's a gap between 6 and 7.
I think he's in the there's about a 3 tight end, maybe a 4 tight end.
You think he's in that top tier with Gonzalez?
Well, Gonzalez is done, so let's not.
That's not official.
That's
not official.
He's gonna be done.
He said it wasn't official. He's going to sleep on it.
Okay.
Jason Witten, Jimmy Graham,
Jason
Hernandez,
Witten.
Gronkowski. I don't think Pitt is in that league.
No, Pitt is probably right outside of that then. 5 or 6, I said. You just named off how many guys?
5 or 6.
We got Gronkowski and Hernandez. We got
Witten, Gonzalez.
Witten. Gonzalez is out. I'm talking about for next year.
Yeah, I know. He said he didn't make it official. He's going to retire.
Never mind. Next topic.
All right, let's move on to the defenses. IDPs. Okay, this is for the more elevated form of fantasy play.
Let's go back though. We totally skipped your receivers for Baltimore.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, we moved on to tight end.
No, we did. It's because we talked about Randy. Everybody got excited.
All right, Baltimore receivers. You're right. Randy Moss threw the monkey wrench into the operation. Yeah. Baltimore receivers. My original point was Torrey Smith, bona fide threat, number one. So he deserved all the attention, all the accolades, all the hype that he got going into the year.
Yeah.
But sneakily, their best receiver has been Anquan Boldin.
In the playoffs.
2 touchdowns in the AFC Championship, a monster game in the wild card round in the win over the Colts, 145 yards and a touchdown.
Nice game.
70 yards or so against Denver. I mean, he's on a monster postseason. He's in the peak of his career, maybe the prime. Yeah. He's in that window.
Tough.
He's in that window for wide receivers of age 28 to 32. He's in that window. Yeah. He has the physical tools still. He's a great possession receiver. He's a red zone threat. He has good hands. And he's a tough receiver as well that won't shy away from the contact or the crowded areas. Boldin, I took a gamble on him with the fantasy pool at the beginning of the postseason, and it's paid off. And I think his stock rebounds in 2013.
It rebounds, but he's just not one of those sexy names, and it's going to benefit the guys.
It's because he's been around forever.
I know, but it's going to benefit the guys. He's going to be like one of those guys you pick up. You're like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to draft him, but you draft him and you're very happy with him all year. You know what I mean?
Right.
That happens all the time, whether you're kind of forced into picking a veteran or somebody.
Just quiet value.
It's almost like a Donald Driver 5 years ago where he was one of those guys, he wasn't the sexy pick, but he got it done.
Right.
I think Boldin falls definitely right under that category.
All right. Anybody else we're missing from a skill position on offense?
Let's just say we didn't talk about Ray Rice or Frank Gore just because we talked about their backups, but we have to give them props. Obviously, we know who they are.
But their names is enough, isn't it?
But what's Frank Gore's deal next year? What's his deal? Like, he's getting older. He's not getting any younger.
What's his shelf life at this point? Let me ask you that.
What does he have? How many
What
years?
does he have left in the tank? He is 20. I think he's 29.
But he's been a starting.
He has the 49ers rushing record, by the way.
Yeah, but he's been one of those guys carrying the load.
Right.
So his miles.
He's got a lot of mileage, right?
So I'm just wondering what is going to happen with him.
Well, that's why with San Fran, though, and they have so many rushing packages. I mean, it's been all about Kaepernick. The focus has been on what Kaepernick has done, the weapons in the pass game. But that running game is really the DNA still of the San Francisco 49ers. And they have, I think, 13, 14 different running sets in their offense, which is absurdly high. They have not only Frank Gore, they have other goal line threats, and Anthony Dixon, third-year player with big size at 235. We mentioned James at the scat position. We mentioned Hunter, who got hurt about midway through the year but was solid. I mean, they have a plethora of backs that can get it done pieces. Should Gore go down next year, and you're right, it could happen. 16 games is a lot for a back
and he's injury prone.
Of that age, that injury prone, and with that many miles of work. So if Gore were to go down, let's say in 2013, which of the remaining pieces would you like to have a stake in?
See, I think that it's tough to even go there because all those guys I think would be splitting carries, and it'd be tough to have one guy running the ball. There's no Frank Gore there. We see that. Dixon's not going to do it. And then the little guys, they'll be good on third down, good on passing downs, but are they going to be able to run up the middle? I don't know.
So you think in that case the Niners would throw more at that point?
Throw more.
Or use Kaepernick more on the ground?
Kaepernick could be, less effective if Gore went down. Like, I think Gore is a huge piece, that's overlooked in this offense all the time. He's their best player on offense.
I'm not going to argue.
Yeah, you love those type of backs. Yeah, exactly. So,
he's a
and then one more guy we haven't mentioned out of all the teams here is Vernon Davis.
Yeah,
obviously, we gotta say something about Vernon Davis because he is a game changer. He's a guy. If he shows up here on Sunday, I could see him having 2 touchdowns. A monster game.
Right.
He has that potential, and it wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise me either. No. Vernon Davis, first of all, Had a lot of hype coming out of Maryland as a rookie, but he lived up to it. I mean, you could
slowly,
see.
Though.
Slowly,
it
did. You're right.
While.
But when you saw him play at the NFL level, if you hadn't seen him in college, you're like, wow, who's that guy? Because athletically, he was ahead of the game.
Yeah, he started like the big tight end movement.
See, he's in the I would put him in the top tier of tight ends over Dennis Pitta.
Yeah, they're both.
San Fran's got
I think if you look at their numbers though, this season, I bet they were very similar as far as touchdowns, yards. But Vernon Davis, I would say, had a kind of an off year compared to how.
I don't know. He had a strong start. He went quiet, and then he kind of picked up again in the playoffs.
Yeah, he had some games though in the regular season where he put up next to a goose egg, pretty close.
Yeah, he was kind of the Kaepernick switch originally kind of phased him out.
Yeah, exactly.
For whatever reason, and
Crabtree picked up production.
What I think it just took Kaepernick and him some games, some time, some snaps to get on the same page and. He had a big game against Atlanta in the NFC Championship. So you're right. He is an X factor, let's say, for the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Quickly here, Super Bowl edition, Fantasy Champion Show. Nick Anastos, Bob Morin, MC the Brick behind the camera, looking at the Super Bowl matchup between the 49ers and the Ravens. One area, the last area we haven't examined, defense and special teams, Bob. Obviously, the DNA of both teams really based around defense. The reputations of both teams are not only that they're good on defense, but they're hard-hitting. This is going to be a blue-collar, black and blue bruise type of Super Bowl, I think.
So.
And then, if you're not in an IDP league, again, we both recommend get in an IDP league. It not only gets you more familiar, it not only gets you more familiar with both sides of the football, but it gives you more names to your fantasy database as well. And you're watching games on football on TV and saying, okay, you're queuing in on defense. And if not, it could have been a semi-meaningless game.
The only reason I like IDPs is because you get to watch more players.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? That's the only reason.
Well, there's some good ones to watch.
Yeah. Oh, I had Von Miller. I had Von Miller this year, and he was very enjoyable.
But in the Super Bowl.
I know. I understand what you're saying. And a lot of big question marks surrounding defense, like Ed Reed. He's going to be a free agent. And this is Ray Lewis's last game, so it's gonna be fun to watch.
Daniel Ellerbe is a name as well for IDP enthusiasts. Ellerbe obviously is first of all known if you're in an IDP league, but secondly, he's really really has shown what he can do sideline to sideline. He's an athlete and kind of a name that has flown under the radar. Again, outside linebacker for the Ravens. Ellerbe in his second year.
How about a UNH big guy playing in the not big guy but.
Corey Graham.
6 feet tall, yeah. Corey Graham, UNH grad playing in the Super Bowl for the Ravens.
As a defensive back.
And you guys probably saw him intercept Peyton Manning twice in that playoff game. So should be fun. It's going to be a good time. Let me ask you a question here while we wrap up the show here.
All right.
What's your favorite Super Bowl food?
Ooh.
Or snack?
Ooh. I don't know. That is.
We're going to be cooking up some food on Sunday.
Well, what do you have?
Possibly.
Let's
we got your mozzarella sticks, buffalo chicken dip. What do you like? Pizza?
I love.
What are you looking forward to?
I like pizza. I like mozzarella sticks. I like a lot of Italian.
I'm looking forward to the food and the commercials and the betting that is going on with Super Bowl because my team is not in it. Neither is yours.
Correct. So we will be watching the Super Bowl. We'll be watching the prop bets, which is
enjoying ourselves.
Enjoying ourselves as well. Enjoying the food, enjoying the squares, enjoying the football itself.
The company too, of course.
The company, of course. All right, that wraps up a successful edition.
No, it didn't
wrap quite yet.
Because I just have to say, I love that we did not mention the Harbaugh brothers once on the show today, which is great.
Quite amazing, but you had to break the streak.
I wanted to at the end.
All right, for MC the Brick, Bob Morin, I'm Nick Anastos. This has been the Fantasy Champion Show, Super Bowl edition. We'll see you next time.
There's Dennis Pitta.
Nice throw.